Hi, everyone. I can see some folks joining. We're just going to give people a couple minutes to get acclimated, and then we'll get going with Bridget. I can still see folks joining, so we'll just give them another minute before we jump in. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you again for submitting your questions, for joining us today. I think we've got a great presentation, and Bridget, we're so happy you're here. So while we wait for these last couple people to get in, I'll just go over a few FAQs. Thank you so much for being here, everyone. My name is Max. I'm with the Alumni Association here at Northwestern University, along with my colleague, Jacqueline Thomas. And we're going to begin in a few minutes, but first, I wanted to make sure that everyone has these brief FAQs. We're so thankful for Bridget for being here. If you have any questions now or during the presentation that you'd like to ask, please feel free to use the Ask Your Question box on the left-hand side of your webinar dashboard. Just type in your question and hit send. We're going to keep an eye on those questions and ask as many as we can at the end of the presentation. You'll also find some great resources included in the top tabs of the webinar platform. Please feel free to view that information at your leisure. If you do have any technical difficulties during the webinar, please look at the technical issues tab to see if your question is listed there. Typically, most issues can be solved simply by refreshing your browser. And finally, we of course will be sending out the link to a recording of this webinar along with an attendee survey to all registrants after this talk. And I'm very pleased now to introduce Bridget. Bridget is the Chief Project Officer and Dream Wrangler at social impact consultancy Harkin and the creator of Explore Your Career River, a framework for professional fulfillment that explores what happens when we stop climbing and start exploring. She's a 2018 Northwestern grad, and we are so excited that she could be with us here today. Bridget, I will let you take it away.
Thank you so much, Max. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I'm so excited today to share the Career River framework with you. We will be having plenty of time for Q&A, and please do feel free to use that Q&A box. I come from the world of engagement journalism, so I really want to do everything we can to surface the incredible expertise and experiences in the room today. So to kick things off, I will share with you that the Career River is a framework for navigating a fulfilling professional journey. And we'll get to the origin story of the Career River in just a moment. You may, if you can, want to have something handy to write with and on as we go through today's presentation. If you don't, that's okay, but there's a mapping exercise involved. But before we get to me, I am really curious to learn more about you. So I would like to invite you to a cocktail party. It might be a little early, but who's to say? We can do anything we want. I'm going to ask you to take this challenge. And this is a challenge I put out there anytime you are asked, so what do you do, right? Cocktail party, social event, networking event. And what's so interesting is we often respond by saying, I am XYZ. And if the career ladder was in the room with us, we'd essentially be pointing to a rung on this ladder. So what do you do? I am a journalist. Kudos to my fifth grader for contributing his art skills to this project. And what changes, what shifts when instead of saying, I am this, we share what we're exploring, what we're interested in looking at, and also how it's informing where we might go next, all the possibilities. Yeah, take the ladder out of the room. So the challenge is this. I'm going to ask you to take a minute, write something out if you want to, but I would love to see some examples in the Q&A section to read out as well. I'm going to ask you to respond to the so what do you do question without saying your job title or company. You can't say I am. So here are the rules of the challenge. Ready? Don't say I am. No job titles or company names. Instead, when someone says, so what do you do? We're in a room right now and I come up to you, oh, so what do you do? You're going to say how you help achieve something real quick, 3 sentences or less. Yeah? What you're helping with, what that currently looks like, what you're interested in exploring. So take a moment if you're ready. This is just a draft, okay? Don't worry. I'm not going to share any names with these descriptions. I'd love to get a couple examples in the Q&A. As you're thinking, I will share 2 examples with you. Here's an example from someone about how they help, what that currently looks like, and what this person is interested in exploring. How do you help? What does that look like? What are you interested in exploring? Ooh, thank you. Ready? I'm exploring sustainable food systems in Italy and seek to help entrepreneurs in the food sector build their businesses. Awesome. I work with smart, diverse people to help them achieve their vision in the real world. I like that one. That sounds like what I do too. How do you help? What does that currently look like? What are you interested in exploring? I help startups build their business through strategic partnerships. I'm exploring how I may help companies that are taking big swings to solve our climate crisis. I help people on either side of political divides to engage using theater-based dialogue. Cool. That's very cool. I help people find their purpose in life and develop the competencies to achieve them. These are great. I help make medicine safer for the public. I analyze clinical data to achieve this. So that's what you're currently doing. I want to explore better ways to scientifically communicate to the public. Thank you. These are all wonderful. I'll read a couple more examples. Are you interested in exploring? I'm exploring how cybersecurity and compliance helps construction companies. Oh my goodness. I help translate complex technical ideas into real-world solutions that help people use data more efficiently and excel at their jobs. I help corporate legal departments run more efficiently by managing costs, implementing technologies, and identifying process improvements. I'm exploring how we can better align our goals with the company's enterprise goals and how we can be more strategic. Okay, I'll only read one more, but these are all wonderful. Let's do this one. I help people tell their stories to the right audiences, and I'm exploring furthering my desire to link my editing and writing background with the needs of tech companies. All right, congratulations. You all excelled at the cocktail party challenge. Amazing job. And I hope that gave you just a flavor of how with one tweak, with getting away from saying I am to I help, we give people more opportunities to understand what we're capable of and how that might connect with their work. My friend's example up here, she works in HR, as you probably discerned. Honestly, if someone told me just in a social event, oh, I work in HR, I'd probably say, oh, I wouldn't have anything to say to that. Like, okay. But when she's talking about utilizing technology for work-life balance, like now I have questions. Now I want to start a conversation. So we start from this challenge because our jobs are not who we are. And I will share my cocktail party challenge answer here. But I would be so curious. All those examples I read, I have immediate follow-up questions and things I'm curious about. And also I'm starting to see connections. So here's my cocktail party challenge. I help newsrooms connect with their audiences. What I do is write in my name. I work with newsrooms to find the gap between what they think communities want to know and what people actually care about. And then we bridge it. Bridget. Right now, I'm exploring community-centered election and democracy-related coverage and how journalism support organizations like mine can better connect and coordinate. And I hope that gives you a better sense of what I do than saying I'm the dream wrangler at a social impact consultancy. So before we move on to this Career River concept, where it came from and how we can apply it to our lives, I want you to know that coming from today's presentation, you will not only be armed with a new framework for exploring your own professional trajectory, where you'd like to go next, what's possible for you, but also with resources to learn, share, and connect around this concept. So just as a preview, and I will pop this in the chat as well, I run a, as Max mentioned, newsletter called Explore Your Career River. And if I can find my way back to the chat, here we go. And I would like to invite all the Wildcats here today to get 1 month free, where you can get full subscriber access. I'll outline what that looks like more in detail later today. But if you're interested in this concept, if this is spurring some thoughts for you, I do have a post there on the Cocktail Party Challenge. Please do feel free to get a 30-day free trial and get full access to all the Explore Your Career River benefits. And again, this link is available in the chat, but also Max will be sending out a follow-up link for today. I am so excited. I am thrilled, honestly, to be here today. I really appreciate Max and the team at Northwestern for putting together this conversation, because it's a really essential conversation to have, particularly in this moment. And for me, Northwestern was really essential in helping me understand how my own career could change and adapt over time. So I'm going to ask Max to put up a poll now, and I will say there are no right or wrong answers here, okay? I'm just going to temp check in the room. I'd love to know how well the career ladder, which has several defined elements to it that we'll go through in just a moment, captures your career experiences so far. And on the lower end of the scale, 1 would be like, career ladder does not describe my professional journey. Scale of 5 would be, this captures my career journey extremely well. So cast your votes while we talk about what the career ladder concept looks like. And I want to be really clear here. I am not anti-career ladder. I think there's a place for it. What I object to, and what I've been researching and examining for the past several years, is the career ladder as the only model for our entire professional life. It comes from the 19th century. It started at Victorian firms. It came over from the military. And frankly, it's just outdated as the only way to look at success. There are times when it works really well. I've climbed the career ladder in the newsroom, and it worked for me at that time. But my entire career will not necessarily be a ladder. And that, I think, is the crucial difference here. So what are some of the characteristics of a career ladder? You've got really clearly defined roles. It's predicated on going up the corporate hierarchy. So the roles are clear. The next steps are clear. I mean, if you had a ladder with rungs all over the place, that sounds like a recipe for injury. And success is defined by upward progress, up the hierarchy, up the status, higher and higher titles. Now, again, I'm not opposed to that as one way to approach a career, but as we'll see, there are other ways we can explore toward professional fulfillment beyond the ladder. All right, if we could close our poll, let's just see what the room is like and what the temperature is like in the room here. I'd love to share out these results. How are people feeling about how the career ladder captures your experiences to date? Oh, we got kind of a bell curve, maybe slightly edged toward the lower end of the scale. So 34%, it looks like saying 2. It's not an exact reflection. There are 3 people who say, yeah, the career ladder matches my career trajectory extremely well. There are 8 people who say not at all well. So that just is an example of the career ladder is a model for professional advancement, but I would say not the only model for advancement. So where did the career river concept come from? I'm going to bring you back to pandemic lockdown. I was working full time while homeschooling 2 young children, which is not a recipe for success, as we all know. And there was a moment I was sitting on my kitchen floor crying. Who among us has not had this moment, especially during pandemic lockdown? And my kindergartner comes in and tells me I have too many feelings. Like, well, you're not wrong. I asked her where I should put them. She's like, you should deposit them. Okay, where? Where should I put them? Then she tells me to put those feelings in the future. What would that mean? I was awestruck She'd have wandered off. I'm sitting there on my kitchen floor like, what did she just say to me? And it connected with something I'd been using to try to explain to journalism students my own career. So I work in the field of audience engagement, which is a growing and changing field in journalism. And I would say, it's not so much a defined career path. It's more like a river delta. It's more like a fertile area to explore. So in this moment, this idea really coalesced to me. There are ways to move forward beyond the path that has been defined for us, that we can find for ourselves. And so the animating question of the Career River concept is, what changes when we view our careers with this exploratory lens? And this is what we're going to discuss today. So I encourage you to think about how this reflects and informs your own career journey to date, how you might use it to inform your decisions in the future. I'm going to share a mapping exercise so you can look at your careers through this lens. And also, I've approached this concept as a journalist. I've been interviewing professionals about their own kitchen floor moments and researching the realities of the modern working world. And there is evidence that this Victorian era career ladder concept is unsuited as the only, again, it can be one, but the only framework to pursue in today's marketplace. There's a reason that in recent years, we have started talking about career lattices, career portfolios, the career playground, right? And what the Career River adds to this conversation is a narrative that informs progression and progress over time. So I'm going to share a little bit about what this has looked like at my own career journey, and then we're going to do a mapping exercise together. Before we do that, I just want to pause and Max ask if there's anything urgently in the Q&A that I should address. We're good?
I am looking through, and I don't think so. I think it's most of the answers from the beginning, so you're good to go.
Excellent. Sounds good. Okay, so what has my river looked like? Just really briefly, because this will help inform the mapping exercise we'll get to next. I started out in journalism, going up that career ladder very consistently at a daily newspaper, from reporter to online editor to managing the team of local news staff. And then I came to Northwestern. As Mac mentioned, I received my master's degree in 2018, and that was through the IMC Integrated Marketing Communications program at Medill. And it was really a shift for me in understanding what was possible, because you'll notice I went to marketing. I didn't get journalism from Medill. I got marketing. And I went to marketing because I was really curious about understanding these concepts. I kind of felt like I was a spy, and I was like taking them back to the world of journalism about better understanding your audiences and how to build relationships with them, and also the business side. And this is where the latter stopped feeling like the right choice for me. I wasn't interested in being the editor-in-chief of the newspaper. What was I supposed to do? And so I worked to get those provisions. We'll see in a moment, there are different roles you can have at your river. I was provisioning to prepare myself for what's next. And Northwestern was just an incredible place to do that. And something still, as we'll see, that informs my work. And from there, I moved to these new roles, this fertile river delta that I never could have predicted and that I frankly struggled to explain, that didn't follow any kind of ladder, but allowed me to work instead of with one newsroom, with 145 different newsrooms, primarily in the US and UK, on audience engagement and collaborative journalism strategies. And as we'll see, the sense of progress I got from that was much larger than what I individually would have gotten from becoming the editor-in-chief of the newspaper. So this really comes to look at how you do something versus what you're doing at the moment. That difference between pointing at the rung of the ladder saying, I am this, versus I help this, I'm exploring this. I'm all about helping people find the information they need. And although what that looks like has changed over time, that core animating principle has not. So here's the first insight that the Career River Framework provides. Our roles do not define us, our interests do. Our roles do not define us, I am this. Our interests, our skills, our expertise do. You think back to how I introduced myself in the Cocktail Party Challenge. I said, I help newsrooms find the gap between what people want to know what they think people want to know, what they actually want to know, and bridge it. So I'm working in journalism, but what other fields could I work in trying to help bridge information gaps? Could I be a librarian? Could I be a museum exhibit? You know, like so many different opportunities to do that same type of work with those same skills, because I am not defined by the role I've had. I'm defined by the work, the interest, the expertise I have done. Okay, are you ready for some mapping? Let's map. Let's think this through. We're going to add some layers. So I started thinking about how this looks, because the ladder, one of the benefits of the ladder is clarity, right? You know where you've been and where you go next. Again, not opposed to the ladder. I just think there are alternative methods available to us. So reminder, I was climbing the ladder at the newsroom. Hooray, I came to Northwestern and got some provisions to inform the next part of my journey, moving into consulting journalism support. You'll notice here, I have places along the top. This could be companies you've worked at, industries you've worked in, but like major sort of locations for your work that you have had. Put those at the top. We're just sketching this out. No one's going to see it but you. No pressure, right? And then you'll notice this idea of career progress on the left. And we're going to explore this concept a little more fully, okay? So don't put anything down just yet. But when I think about where I started, right, at first progress meant advancing up that ladder in the newsroom, which was very clear. I was a reporter, then I was an editor, I had direct reports, I had additional responsibility. When I left the newspaper, I moved to a role where I no longer had direct reports and my responsibilities were not as significant. My salary is about the same. And so I would say progress-wise, that would look like I had moved to the side or down a little. And so that's why I've mapped it here farther down. And then after going back to school to get my master's at Northwestern, moving to that consulting role. Now I'm working with 145 newsrooms, right? Not just one. Whoa, like what progress and work that I really care about. Let's dig into this idea of progress. Our definition of progress, our definition, will shift over time. There are different ways to look at progress in your career. And so if I was doing a typical ladder modeling, moving from the newsroom to a marketing role where I did not have any more direct reports or as significant responsibility in the company, that would be a step back. That would be something I might feel a little, I don't know, ashamed might be a strong word, but if I'm going for a job interview, I need to explain it, right? I need to explain myself. So on the latter definition, this is seen as a setback. But what if career progress did not only mean where I sit in the corporate hierarchy? So I have tried to capture these ideas, again, from a lot of research, a lot of interviews, into 4 different modes of career progress. And I'd be really curious if anyone has additional ideas for anything else that should be added here. Status, I would say, is primarily what the ladder offers us, right? You're getting more pay, more direct reports, you're moving up the hierarchy, getting more responsibility. Like those are all, I would say, progress in terms of your status within the organization, within your field. Not opposed, but that's one. That's just one. That's not everything. What if we look at career progression in terms of growing our skills? That's why I came to Northwestern. I wanted to learn about marketing skills so I could apply them in my work moving forward. What if we look at career progress simply in terms of stability? I need a paycheck. I have a family. I have a mortgage, right? Like I don't want to be at a place that's experiencing layoffs. So it will be better for me if I increase the stability in my work at this moment. Again, shifts over time. You can have different definitions of progress. And then lastly, satisfaction. You hear about the Peter Principle. You hear about people promoted to, what is it, the level of their incompetence. I was at a role recently and the CEO position opened up and somebody asked if I was going out for it. My reaction was, no, like, I don't want that job. Nothing about that job appeals to me right now. growing your satisfaction. Maybe you need more flexibility. There's a wonderful resource called Work-Life Chemistry from the Poynter Institute, and it talks all about finding not just balance in your life, but the chemistry, the right mix of variables for what you want, finding clear alignment between your values and your work. So I want you to stop here and think about what progress has meant for you at different roles in your career. And again, it's totally fine if it's increasing status, but there are other ways to look at progress beyond moving up a hierarchy. And maybe you wanted more stability, maybe you wanted to learn something new, right? What would progress look like for you? Oh, great job. Thank you for finding the work-life chemistry resource. So now you can start putting together your map. Starting to look like a river. Starting with your initial roles, the lines on your resume, the big jobs at different places. What offered you the opportunity to progress upward according to your definition at that time? What kind of progress were you looking to make at that time? And positioning it accordingly. This can be really hard because many of us have many different definitions of progress. And then there are the definitions that others expect from us when we're talking about career progress versus the ones that are intrinsic that we care about. Now I'll make a point here. That dip in my river, role 3, when I went from running a news desk to being an frontline marketing employee. That's when I went to Northwestern and got my master's. That's when I was provisioning, and that set me up to go where I went next. I could not have gone to role 4 without taking that step back. And this is really important because it's not only about what the move immediately means for you, but also what it sets you up to do, what it flows into in your future. And I mapped role 4 according to a different definition of progress than I had over here in this first column at the newsroom. I actually still did not have any direct reports when I worked as a consultant for newsrooms. But I was working with many more newsrooms and the impact felt more significant to me. And so to me, that was an increase in my satisfaction in the work I was doing. First column for me was status. Second column was stability. I just needed a paycheck, right? Fourth role was satisfaction. Okay. By the way, if you're interested in doing this mapping exercise, I do have a PDF that you'll be able to access if you sign up for that subscription access. Okay, wherever you are with your map, let's unpack this last insight. We hold the power to navigate toward fulfillment. Yes, we work within a system. And for particular groups, that system is rife with obstacles. But if we are defining progress for ourselves, that allows us to open up new opportunities to see what is possible. Here's one person I interviewed about the Career River approach. She had gone back to school, she had changed direction, and she said she felt less pressure when she stopped thinking about the ladder. She could actually feel it in her body and started thinking about the river. So I'm going to ask you to add one more element to your map, and that is thinking about the way the work feels to you as you're doing it. Moments of flow. What is the state of flow? It's when you are so immersed in the work you're doing that you lose all sense of time, right? Now, no one's going to go into work every single day and feel flow all the time, but you will have moments of it. You will have moments when you feel like you are really aligned with what your skills are equipping you to do. Yeah, and you're really excited about it. You'll have moments, precious moments. You also face challenges in your work. And these can be chronic challenges, right? Maybe you're working at an under-resourced company and there are people getting layoffs every so often. I come from journalism, it happens a lot, right? Or you might have hazards, just like individual moments where it's really hard for you to move forward. Layoff, hazard. These will happen. These will happen. You can't avoid them, but you can let them inform you. And so if you look here, a little hard to see, but if you add these phases to your map, what were moments of flow that you had? When were you experiencing challenges? When did you have those hazards crop up? And how did you respond? My newsroom was undergoing layoffs. By the time I left, my boss and I were doing the jobs that 7 people had done when I started. That was a hazard, and I wanted to navigate to something better for me. And at first that felt like flow, and then I propped up challenges. I wasn't aligned. I wasn't as satisfied. I was looking for something different. So we can't control what obstacles will come up, but we can use it to inform how we respond. And so this is a key difference, I think, that the ladder doesn't capture. One of the many key differences, and we're not going to get into it today, but there are other elements here where a river has tributaries. Think about your networks and how they contribute to your work. You're feeding a larger ecosystem. How do you think about that? It always seemed very lonely to me that I'm just supposed to climb up like on my own, and then I guess I'm higher than everybody else. Like, what do I get at the end versus like feeding an ocean? So one of the key differences here is that you're not only progressing with that status, but it's about how you're fulfilled by the work you're doing and how it's setting you up for the future. A step back may ultimately be better for you back. That was the case for me. So in latter terms, again, my consulting role was not that much higher on the hierarchy. It really wasn't, but for me, it felt much more progress for me. So as you look at your maps, whatever you've sketched out so far, just think about what this makes you consider when it comes to how you define success. What does this offer? What does this open up for you? One last element I have people do when they download the worksheet is look at their transferable skills and what pops up across these different roles. Not who you are, I am this thing on the ladder, but how you help and what you explore. So let's recap. And now I'd like to start another poll as we examine how the career ladder and the career river complement each other in many ways. So if we can start the poll about, if you're thinking about your career as a river, how well, there are no wrong answers. I'm a journalist. I just want the facts. How well does that reflect your experience of your career? The career river concept, this idea that you are exploring, you are navigating, and that progress, the definition of progress to you will shift over time. So career ladder, again, rules are clear, consistent next steps. Success is defined by upward progress. And this can work when you're in a predictable environment. Now, when I was an undergrad, not at Northwestern, my advisor gave me the worst career advice I ever got. He's my advisor, okay, in the journalism program. And he said, don't go into journalism. There aren't any jobs. Go to law school instead. Well, I didn't want to go to law school. He could not see that because the ladders were breaking down, there could be other ways to explore what it would mean to bring information to communities. I ignored him. I've been working consistently in journalism ever since. Now, the career river is defined by your interests. The next steps are emergent and iterative, and your success is defined by fulfillment, by what progress represents to you at the time. All right, let's close the poll if we can. Let's see how the river's shaping up. Oh, we like swung to the right on the bell curve here. So I'm noticing here that 27 people, I think it's about the same number of votes, 27 people feel like this is pretty close to capturing their experience. And that's what my research has been demonstrating, that in the modern workplace, for many reasons, the need to be adaptive is essential. There are 19 people who say it captures it extremely well. There's 3 people who say it doesn't really capture my experience. Maybe they're the same 3 people who said the career ladder captured their experience really well. There's a variety. There's a variety within the whole. So I'll show you what this has looked like for a couple other people, but whatever your career river map is your experience. This is a way of capturing and examining your experience. So here's someone who's pretty early in their career, and you may not be able to see everything on here, but the point I will make at this moment is that you can see there's been a defined progression in roles in terms of what progress meant to this person. And they also wrote their skills underneath each column. This is part of the worksheet exercise. And you'll see critical thinking is sort of a through line, connecting with people, moving from being a wine steward at a restaurant toward coordinating content production, toward being a reporter. If I were to sketch out my career river 10 years ago, it probably would have looked a lot like this. Here's somebody else. This is a mid-career person. And the twists and turns, again, they're part of the journey. If you look in that center column, place 4, this person was working at editorial operations. They put one of their skills as wither and die. Like that was a place full of hazards for that person, but it informed where they moved next. And eventually they founded their own business using some of those skills that they've been honing throughout their career, even at the places that they did not put very like high on the progress bar. Create, design. It's all part of the story. So the last item I'll have you consider today, before I offer you some more opportunities to connect, share, and learn from this framework, is what role you're currently taking to writing your career river. I mentioned provisioning. When I went to Northwestern, I really wanted to get new skills, new understanding that I could apply. I apply it all the time. It's been incredibly valuable to me. So if you are looking to grow your skills in your career, and you might need to get a certification, a degree, like you might need to get something to get there, then you're in a provisioning phase. In any career, you're going to go through these phases multiple times. Maybe you're happy where you are and you just want to paddle along, and that is fine. Like maybe you have found that flow and you are interested in moving forward where you are. Very valid. Most of the people I talk to are in a navigator state where they're curious about where they could go next. Now there can be like urgently need to navigate, like I got laid off, I need to know what I'm going to do next. Or they could just be trying to position themselves. Next month, I'm interviewing actually a Medill lecturer, Neil Golden. So shout out any of my fellow IMC people who are here, about how he approached his career transition when he left being the chief marketing officer of McDonald's USA. So like he was a driving force between McCafe, like you know his work. And he thought he'd go to a CEO role, but he found his way to Northwestern. And so next month, and again, if you take advantage of the link, you'd be able to join this webinar. I'll be talking to him about how he navigated that transition. And then last, and sadly, but realistically, there are times when you're just adrift. You don't know where you want to go. You don't feel like you have any tools that you need to get there. And that can be a really, really hard place to be. But that also doesn't mean there's not a path forward. And there are tools and resources available to help you figure out how you can move to paddling, to provisioning, to navigating, to get out of that space. When you're facing one of those kitchen floor moments, when you're not sure where to go next, or something unexpected has happened, and you feel that overwhelming sense of uncertainty, remember that our professional journeys are a continual process of discovery. We don't need to know all the answers. We just need to ask this question and see what unfolds. So with that, I'd love to open it up to Q&A. I'm going to talk through the resources available to you to give you some time to pop your questions. I'm particularly interested, and remember, I'm a journalist. Like I've just been exploring because there has been such a disconnect between the way we've been trained to talk about our careers and the reality that we experience. What is this disconnect? So I'm particularly interested in any questions or thoughts that would be broadly useful to people who might be facing those kitchen floor moments, who might be wondering what comes next and what actions they can take. So as I talk through these resources for you, put your questions in the chat, and then Max, I think you're going to queue those up for me. And remember, all these resources that I'm about to share will be available to you both. I'll put the links in the chat if you want to like just open up a window right now, or you can also get it in the follow-up email from Northwestern. So here we are. We've been on a whole journey around this career river concept. And maybe you're wondering where to go from this webinar. I'm going to give you a way to learn more about the concept, about the research I've been doing into it and the people I've spoken to about it. I'm going to give you a couple ways that you could share this concept and also a way that you can connect with me further if you're interested in sharing your own experiences. So you want to learn more? Career River, Bridget, what have you been working on all this time? I have a Substack. It's called careerriver.substack.com. I'll pop in the subscription button again. And it goes through all of the concepts we talked about today and much more. When you become a supporting subscriber and you have that link to get 30-day free trial, you'll get that worksheet download that walks you through and then has a reflection section for the steps that we took today and to uncover what your career river story looks like so far and how it might inform not only how you talk about where you've been, but how you assess where you're going. And then lastly, and here is that link, if you want to take advantage of this special offer, here we go. To get a 30-day free trial, full subscriber access, you get all the archives, you get the Map Your River download. I do monthly interviews with people who have faced moments of uncertainty or challenge in their careers that the subscribers can join as a webinar and ask your own questions. And as I previewed, next month is a Northwestern person. So on February 24th, I'll be talking with Neil Golden about how he made that decision about when he left McDonald's USA, where he'd go next, how he wound up at Northwestern. These chats are fantastic. They are so inspirational and also so concrete. They go beyond the sort of celebration post parade that we see on LinkedIn to the real struggle, uncertainty, challenge. Actually, I was at an IMC Accelerator event that Neil Golden was running, and Jonathan Kopulski, again, shout out to my IMC people, said, "Your career only makes sense in hindsight." I thought that was great. Your career only makes sense in hindsight. So if you want to learn more, please, I really do invite you to take advantage of connecting with the newsletter. It's where I'm really sort of testing this concept and seeing what I can find out about it. Maybe you want to share what you learned today. Maybe this is feeling really interesting or inspiring to you. I would love that. I want to get this out there. I have found it really beneficial for informing my own career journey. So I posted this morning about talking to you all today. If you just feel like sharing that, adding your thoughts, there's a LinkedIn post right there. And then also I offer speaking engagements around this idea. I can do virtual workshops like this one, or I can do in-person events. If you want to bring Career River to your organization, to your community, I've done corporate, I've done workshops, I've done the Women in Journalism Summit, can be for non-journalism audiences too. Just reach out to me. I'm at bridget@mycareerriver.com. Or if there's anything else you want to check in about, always happy to make time for a fellow alum. Okay, we're almost done with the resources, so get those questions in, because I want to be sure we have the chance to get to your thoughts and questions too. Lastly, if you want to share your own career experiences, or if there's someone who you're like, oh man, they have such a career river. I never knew that's what it called, but that's what it is. I'm looking for people to interview. These Navigator Q&As are absolutely fascinating. I learn something new every time. I talked to a nurse who used to be a TV comedy writer for Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and Doug and like all these 90s cartoon shows. And then she just decided that she wanted to be a nurse now and moved into that field. And so anybody has a career story to tell. And I would encourage you to fight imposter syndrome and any little voice saying like, oh, I'm not that interesting. I didn't write for Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. You're interesting because you have insights to share that others can benefit from. So if you or someone you know would be willing to talk about your own moments of uncertainty, where it was not clear where you could go next and how you approached that. I talked to someone who was laid off. Like, we all face these challenges. If we start talking to each other, we can learn and grow together. And that's where the tributaries come in. those contributions to our network. Okay, Max, I'm going to turn it over to you and our guests here today. And again, I just want to express my gratitude for you all for coming, for participating today. And I'd love to hear what this is making you wonder.
Bridget, thank you so much. And thank you, everyone. We've got a ton of questions, almost a dozen questions. So we're going to try to get through as many of these as we can. I'm just going to go in chronological order from the first one that was submitted. This is a great question. Someone asks, I know where my career has been, but recently was laid off and have no idea where it's going now. I'm sure on the career ladder that the next position might be rungs lower than what I did. So I'm interested in the river and exploring where I can go from here. How can I control where my river goes next, or what are some tips to make the mental switch from the ladder to the river?
Ooh, what a good question. I'm sorry to hear that you were laid off. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people who have been in that same boat. One of the pieces of advice that one of the navigators gave that I thought was really essential um, is to do something, no matter how small, to help identify where you can go next. And he said his network really showed up for him when he was laid off, this idea of tributaries. And for him, that could be as something as seemingly unrelated as refereeing soccer games for youth sports, but it was something, and it gave him something to go on. And I invite you to check out the Navigator Q&A if you go to that subscription link. But the idea of controlling your river here, I would actually push back on a little bit because it's more about identifying the currents and seeing what's possible. And so I think so often we feel like we have to have the answer. So making that switch from ladder to river is about saying, I don't have the answer, but I have a question. Could I ... And then once you've identified that question to explore, even taking little steps to do that work, to explore that question, get a paycheck if you need a paycheck, right? But taking little steps to explore and taking this sort of longer term view of what's possible will help you make that switch. Great question.
We have another one, somewhat similar question, someone looking to re-enter the workforce after following a standard career ladder for a while, and then having some time off due to circumstances, leaving the workforce to raise a family, take care of elders, and they've explored their interests, homeschooled children, and worked with local nonprofits. With children now in high school and college looking for what to do next, do you have any suggestions to narrow down their interests and find their next steps?
Oh, what a good question. It's like, I could do anything where there's so many like branches to pursue. Um, I appreciate the note about the importance of caregiving and time for caregiving and looking at progress in terms of I would put that under stability. I mean, now I have 3 kids and a house and like a toy poodle and 2 guinea pigs. It's a lot different, my needs for my work, than when I was on my own climbing the ladder at the newsroom and I could work until 10 p.m. at night. Nobody was affected, right? And so the stability of the caregiving, whether that's currently something for you or something that you're addressing, is a definition of progress. What people have been telling me, and I find this interesting, but it makes sense the more I think about it. The best way they found of getting clarity was 2 things. One, looking at job descriptions and just seeing what interested them as sort of a gut check, like, oh, is this a job I'm interested in terms of narrowing down your options? But 2, just talking to people. And it could be people who you know and who know you, and just talking about like, well, what might you think, I would be interested in, or, have them ask you questions about your work. But also, it's easier than you think often to reach out to like luminaries, people you respect in your field, and have them respond back. That was the advice from the man who got laid off had said about his own search for what's next. And so having conversations, getting anything to get the momentum going can be really clarifying. And again, understanding you don't need to have that answer. You just need to have a question, not even the question, a question you want to explore.
So we're continuing to get tons of great questions. So I'm going to try to get through as many of these as we can. One person asks, what's the difference between the ideas of the phases of provisioning and paddling? If you could
Yes.
expand.
Yeah, thank you for that question. So Paddling, I would say, would be you feel like you have what you need to move forward. And provisioning is when you need to acquire something. Maybe it's a certification, maybe it's skills. For me, it was the marketing knowledge that my education at Medill gave me to be able to move forward more effectively. So you probably provision before you paddle, especially if you're changing direction.
And we have I'll try to sort of combine these couple questions into one. A couple people asking basically about advice for someone who's got a lot of experiences, but hiring managers don't might not understand how they're related because you haven't really had that ladder. And then sort of related to that, for someone who has maybe a bunch of different skills, but not all of the specific skills that a job description requires. Again, um, how do you promote yourself when you've got these skills, but you don't have that sort of hierarchical career
Yeah.
trajectory?
This is a really critical question because it also uncovers the uh, gap between the way we think about what we want from our careers and what hiring managers think about our careers and what we want. So, one element that I really encourage people to keep in mind. And this, I talk to a lot of people who are facing career uncertainty, and one of the biggest fears they express is this idea of like, I don't know if people will accept like the career choices I've made as what's right for their organization. So doing the mapping exercise, if you haven't climbed up the ladder, the river gives you a way to explain that, particularly when you look for that through line. So my through line for all my different jobs was helping connect people to information. And you probably have a demonstrated track record of, if you have had various experiences, of learning how to apply that in different situations. And so there's a great Q&A, you'll see it if you go to the newsletter, from on making career pivots, and how to talk about it. And her advice was specific around thinking about what the hiring manager wants and then looking at how you can tell your story to emphasize those skills. So like, yeah, I may not have, climbed up the management ranks, but I'm able to apply my experiences to a variety of different informations, and here's how. And then the other element here that I really encourage you to keep in mind is it just takes one. It just takes one hiring manager to say you. And so in my own job searches, I've stopped trying to get the job. If you have the bandwidth, and we don't always have this, to be a little choosy. And I've started looking for the job that gets me. And so what I ask myself after I've done like a round of interviews is, did I explain my unique value proposition fully? And then if they choose you, like, great. Whereas if you're trying to like be the candidate you think they want versus being the candidate you are, then you end up having to do the job that they think, it's like being a square peg in a round hole. I did that when I went to the marketing job. I hated it. It was awful. So if you can afford to think about like, here's what I uniquely bring, is that what you're interested in? It flips the power dynamic a little bit as well.
This is a really interesting question. So we got one from someone who says, "What's your advice for using the Career River for someone who might have more than one career
Oh,
developing at the same time?"
okay. Please reach out to me to talk more because this is something that we've been working on. That mid-career map I showed you that had all the flows, that was something that was a little challenging because that was a person who also had multiple careers developing in tandem. So I would say rather than being focused only on maybe the titles you held at that time, you can bring those different parts of your professional experience together, and see if they map together or see if there are like branches happening. Like maybe, the job that gives you a paycheck is not very high on the progress bar, but your side gig or whatever the case may be really makes you feel interested and excited. And that may be a useful way to determine where you put your time. So it might be more branching than just one unique river. I'm doing two jobs right now. I have my Dream Wrangler social impact consultancy job, and I have Career River. Right now, I'd say they're working in tandem in terms of the professional progress. And my last role, Career River, was way above what I was doing day to day.
So I know we only have a few more minutes, so I'm going to try to combine a couple people's questions into one the best that I can. Um, so first of all, any advice to someone with a career gap? So for example, staying home with kids, a point where maybe they totally changed fields, sort of if you're ready to re-enter the workforce or if you've just changed very majorly, what could be some next steps for those folks?
I mean, I think those gaps, you may not have been being paid for your work, but you've been doing something, right? What have you learned? Where have you grown? Like, what has progress meant for you in that time? Doesn't have to be a line on your resume. I've learned a ton from being a mom. I think I am a better manager because of it. In March, actually, I'm talking to someone about selling your career story. That's going to be the subscriber webinar in March. He's fascinating. He spent 24 years in academia, and then he went and founded a nonprofit news outlet in 2020. And he's like just now leaving academia. And his whole advice is really like owning all your expertise. And again, it just takes one person to see that and say, that's what I want.
So we've got three more, and I think you've teed up this one perfectly. Talking about communicating the career river. How do you do this on a resume? This person says I can imagine
Mm,
explaining it very easily in conversation, but oftentimes the resume is that first introduction. How do you explain sort of your river on paper?
like beyond putting a map on there. um, I think I think you can communicate the river on a resume by using the resume format to emphasize your skills, because the river is about like applying your skills and interest and expertise. And so if you've uncovered that through line in your river, you don't need to use the word career river anywhere. You can just say in a way, and this is also good advice, like speak in the way that hiring managers are going to respond to. We don't have to go down a whole philosophical discussion of career river. We can say in every role, I have developed my ability to deliver meaningful results. And then so highlight the skills and the commonalities that they share with your job titles, and also any ways that you have represented progress. So like increased responsibility for managing XYZ. Great questions. Love these questions.
Well, Bridget, I know you have a hard stop at 1 o'clock, so I'm going to try to get through these last two real quickly. One person asks, how do we think of the career river when we want our destination to be retirement?
I mean, retirement's a destination. I think there's two things here. I think there's thinking about what that progress looks like for you. And then the other element I would bring in here is what ecosystem is your river feeding? And also, who can you contribute your work toward when they embark on their career rivers? Tributaries, we're all connected. And so I think it's looking at what progress means for you as an individual, but then also how your work contributes to the whole.
And I've intentionally saved this one for last because I feel like this is the $1 million question. I just want to say thank you to everyone. We had over 16 questions, so I know I sort of flew through these. So thank you for everyone. I hope we were able to answer yours. But this one I think really encapsulates everything you've been talking about. For those of us that have been following a traditional career ladder and are now feeling adrift, what are the best ways to move into navigator mode with confidence and try to let go of the career ladder or that status?
A great question. Build momentum through small wins. Do something that feeds you and helps inform your decision. And the kitchen floor moment, the thing that my daughter made me see so clearly is that the decisions I make are not only about what I'm doing today, but how it's setting me up for the future. And taking that longer term view opens you up to possibilities. Have a conversation with someone you admire, right? Take one concrete step towards something you can do. And those small wins will build up over time. And I guess I'll just conclude here in our last minute, and I'll put this resource back. Really do. I'm developing resources for each of the stability things. Like I'm working out this framework and interrogating it every week. I would love for you to join me. I really would. I'm so grateful to the Northwestern community for everything it's given me, and I'd love to give back. And I will say none of us is alone on these career journeys. And so I welcome the opportunity to help you get around the next bend.
Bridget, this has been fantastic, and we had such a great turnout today. Thank you so much again, everyone, for asking your questions. Bridget, thank you for sharing your time. We're going to include all of these resources in our post-event survey, so we're going to have all of those available for folks a week from today. If you do have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to us at NAA Careers at northwestern.edu. And Bridget, thank you so much. Have a great day. Go Cats.
Thank you. Go Cats.
Take care, everyone. Thank you.